May we request everyone to settle down. We will begin in a few moments. May we also request the chair and the speakers for session 3 to please join us on stage. I hope that everyone has had a hearty lunch and everyone has been re-energized for this afternoon. We will request also the speakers, the presenters for session 3 to please join us here.
Recording in progress.
May we call Dr. Ng, Professor Hettige, and Dr. Arivart. All right, so let's begin. Welcome again to the 26th AASSREC Biennial Conference. This is our afternoon session for day 1, and we start with session 3. So this is the second part on the topic Sustainability and Society, Interdisciplinary Approaches to Environmental and Technological Change. So let me introduce the session chair. Professor Chintamani Mahapatra, a distinguished academic, is the visionary founder and chairman of the Kalinga Institute of Indo-Pacific Studies. As the astute editor of the Indian Foreign Affairs Journal, published by the esteemed Association of Indian Diplomats, he has played a pivotal role in shaping discourse on international relations. His illustrious tenure as a faculty member at the School of International Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University spanned from 1999 to 2022. During this period, he also served as the dynamic rector or pro-vice chancellor of JNU, leaving an indelible mark from 2016 to 2022. Professor Mahapatra's influence extends beyond academia as evidenced by his roles on significant committees and editorial boards. He has contributed his expertise as member of the UGC Review Committee for the Area Studies Program, the Fellowship Expert Committee at ICSSR, and the Editorial Board of Strategic Analysis at IDSA. Notably, he held the prestigious Tagore Chair Professorship at Yunnan University of China, showcasing his international standing. His research pursuits have taken him to renowned repositories, including various U.S. presidential libraries such as the Truman Library, Eisenhower Library, John F. Kennedy Library, and Johnson Library. Additionally, he has delved into archives at the U.S. National Archives in Washington, D.C., and the British Public Record Office in London. He has authored and edited 8 books, while his insightful chapters grace over 30 edited volumes. His extensive body of work includes more than 70 research articles published in reputable journals, reflecting his dedication to advancing knowledge in the field of international studies. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Chintamani Mahapatra.
Namaste and good afternoon to all the colleagues of the academia in the Indo-Pacific. All of us know very well that time is such an important factor, and we are starting about 11 minutes late. So there is another thing that I know from my own experience, that all great things can be said in 9 to 10 minutes. All right. And if we have some time, where we can have some little interaction with the audience who will be listening to all of us, then it will make them feel good. And it can maybe help you in further strengthening your arguments or maybe some new input. So it will help all of us. Now, the topic is so significant that affects the life of every individual on earth. Sustainability. All of us know very well that the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, has not been achieved. In next 10, 15 years, unlikely to be achieved. and the fallout will affect all of us. Then two important issues that are presenting challenge today is, of course, the environment, and the other one is technology. Now, so many efforts have been made about the environment, and one gentleman in the United States of America got elected, and he's trying to undo everything that was agreed upon in Paris. Now, he thinks that environmental debate and climate change theories and reports all bogus. He wants to dig more oil and gas. And only yesterday there was a news that Donald Trump wants gasoline to be back to the car, and he's saying no to the EVs. It's a very big challenge for everyone around the world. Because if the most powerful country in the world and one of the largest producers of greenhouse gases is not prepared to go by the scientific findings on climate change, how do you face the problem and the issue? Other one is technology. All of us know very well that technology is a big disruptor. Without going into the details, I'll draw your attention to one important development that took place in the area surrounding India recently. That was the role of the social media. Through the power of the social media, the Gen Z revolution that took place in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and Nepal, which led to regime change. Imagine the power of the social media, the new technology, where no government can have full control. And it can really promote understanding and connectivity, and it can disrupt even governance in many, many countries. Then, of course, the AI. Who has not heard about artificial intelligence? All intelligent people want to now employ artificial intelligence, including in their own research. And this morning I was going through some news and I was surprised that there are quite a few software in artificial intelligence that can help all of us. You don't have to do the painstaking review of literature if you want to write a report or an article or a book. It's all there. The technology will help you. The technology will help you even in writing the draft, in checking the plagiarism. I mean, the technology is coming in a very big way, which is going to facilitate research in the Indo-Pacific and in the world. But the same technology can also create a lot of challenges. If a student is techno-savvy and he starts identifying the research problem and he does the review of literature and the write-up and the spell check and the grammar check and everything, then what is he learning? It is the machine which is helping him, right? So at some point, technology will help if you have the fundamental knowledge. Otherwise, it can create a lot of problems. So in this kind of surrounding, this particular conference is so very important. I know that people from different parts of the Indo-Pacific are here. They're speaking about different issues, but I believe all those issues that are going to speak today in 9 to 10 minutes is somehow directly or indirectly related to the issue just now I explained so briefly. Without taking any more time and taking advantage of my chairmanship here, let me now request Dr. Luan to make a presentation. Dr. Luan is from Malaysia. Ma'am, 9 to 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chintamani. Well, Cinta in Bahasa Malaysia is actually love. Oh, all right. All right. It is always very challenging after lunch. Let me try my best. Good afternoon, distinguished delegates, esteemed scholars, policymakers, and fellow member of AASSREC community. I'm Associate Professor Dr. Miew Luan, representing the Malaysian Social Science Association, or PSSM. Today I will presenting a research title. Actually, it's a secondary data, I have to be frank. SDG microgrants on Malaysian civil society organizations, the roles of PSSM in APPGM-SDG projects 2023 to 2024. My co-author is actually also the treasurer of PSSM, Dr. Maisara Hasbullah. She's actually in this hall as well. This presentation highlights how social science knowledge when mobilized strategically, can strengthen national SDG localization efforts and generate transferable lessons for the Indo-Pacific region. In recent years, Malaysia has adopted an innovative governance model through the All-Party Parliamentary Group Malaysia on SDGs, which is APPGM-SDG. It is actually established in 2019 within our Malaysia Parliament, and all ruling or opposition parties, members of Parliament are encouraged to be part of it, meaning that it's actually a cross-boundary in terms of regardless what is your ideology of politics, right? So, one of its key instruments is the SDG microgrant mechanism. So in fact, through the economic planning unit, the government actually allocate funding. Then in the local community level, we look for solution providers who can actually come up some projects that can help the community at the grassroots in terms of maybe, income generation. We actually have a few types of projects which are based on the theme of economy, based on the theme of social and environment. So these are the things that I will further explain and share with you. So within this framework, PSSM plays a distinct role as a social science knowledge broker. We work across 3 domains. Number 1, SDG localization, aligning the global frameworks with the local initiative in the local context. And we work on capacity building by enhancing the impact evaluators and also the civil society organizations' literacy in theory of change, in impact measurement, and also SDG indicators. And of course, we work on micro-grant strengthening by ensuring proposals and the assessment are evidence-based and not just activity-based. So our presentation this afternoon captures the outcomes, the challenges, and regional implication of this collaborative model. While micro-grant schemes have been widely used across Southeast Asia and the Indo-Pacific, there is limited empirical evidence on how social science expertise shapes micro-grants outcomes and how evaluation move beyond simple output counting and how localized models can inform other developing countries. Existing assessments tend to highlight what was done, which means the activities, rather than examining the epistemic and methodological contribution of social science in strengthening community development. Our studies seek to fill these gaps. So, our project is actually guided by these 3 main objectives. We want to examine PSSM's influence on these SDG projects in terms of implementation, in terms of the assessment of the impact. And we want to also assess the community level social, economic, and environmental outcomes that produced through the APPGM-SDG microgrant initiative. Thirdly, to explore the transferability of Malaysia's governance model to the wider Indo-Pacific region. These are a quick one of the research questions. And as I mentioned just now, this is a secondary data research where we conducted document analysis, mainly based on APPGM annual reports and SDGs project impact evaluation report. We also based on secondary analysis of the monitoring and evaluation data sets. A quick one, what are actually the main results? The first major findings concerns PSSM direct influence on the microgrant ecosystem, particularly through training, standard setting, and government support. These are the key outcomes. 95% of the SDG are found alignment. SDG alignment, I mean 95% of the proposals are found aligned with the SDG targets. And improved theory of change logic, which replacing activity-based proposal with outcome-based constructs. And of course, increased evaluation literacy among the CSOs through structured workshop and mentoring. Finally, a unified impact evaluation framework adopted across districts and states. One of the strongest contributions was our role in facilitating the SDG impact evaluation workshop. This is the workshop that I attended for the very first time. When I got to know about APPGM-SDG project, it was in 2020. I think everyone still remember COVID pandemic era. So at that time, we only have 10 plus impact evaluator throughout the country because it's actually a kickstart. And today, we have more than 80 impact evaluators who are actually come from different universities, be it public or be it private in Malaysia. So the evaluation is actually taking according to the zone where we have the north. If whoever familiar with Malaysia Peninsula, we have the north, center, south, and the east. And then we have Sabah and Sarawak. So each of these zones actually led by a project lead and also other scholars under the custody of a PSSM. Then we conduct our work. All right. Of course, later I can share further about how we do our work as an impact evaluator. So you can see what PSSM did is before you can go to the ground for you to do your work or evaluate the impact of the beneficiary and or the project, we need to go through this training. We call it inception meeting and also regional evaluator training. I was there November 8th. We were actually attended a 2 full days training, and we have to work out our proposal, including our budget of our focus group discussion when we go to the grassroots. Right? Just a quick one. Through this, Malaysia saw the emergence of a multi-actor governance ecosystem involving legislators, academics, universities, and also grassroots CSOs working together through shared frameworks. Now, I want to share a little bit about, sorry, I think, all right.
1 minute more.
Okay. I want to share about the outcome on social impacts. Across 2023 to 2024 cycle, microgrant project produced multi-dimensional outcome. Social impact, for example, and also economic impacts, environmental impacts. As I have 1 minute, I have to quick. We also observe strengthened cross-sector collaboration, such as legislators began using evidence to prioritize local issues. Universities serve as a research partner and evaluators. And CSO improve in project design, learning to track outcomes rather than activities. So our analysis reviews 4 lessons that may benefit Indo-Pacific country and attempting SDG localization. As you can see over here, integrate the M&E framework from the outset. Capacity building, networking building, as well as include a full SDG pillar in the project portfolios. So these are quick conclusions where APPGM, the Malaysia's experience shows that SDG microgrants become significantly more impactful when supported by strong social science framework, rigorous evaluation standard, and sustained multi-sector collaboration. Let me also share with you the recommendation from us. These are the 4 recommendations, and I thank you very much for your attention. I look forward to engaging with you in the Q&A session. Thank you.
Very nice and comprehensive presentation. The theme is an excellent theme. No matter how many resolutions the big leaders are making in the United Nations, ultimately the implementation depends on localization, and you have done research on that, and you have pointed out how different kind of stakeholders, multiple actors are in it. It is very inspirational. I'm sure it will have some lessons for other countries as well. There are quite a few other countries which are doing into microfinancing in Brazil and Bangladesh and so many other countries. But your experiment, your result finding are really useful. I'm sure someday all of you will be able to read the research finding that Dr. Luan presented. Thank you very much for that presentation. Let's move on to the second presentation by Professor Siri Hettige from Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Chairman, for giving me this opportunity. Time is very limited, and therefore I will not really go into any detail. As you can see, my theme is sustainability and society towards socially and ecologically sensitive economic development in Sri Lanka. Now, of course, this is a long story, but I'm going to really give you a bit of an overview. Now, the purpose of this presentation is to give you an idea as to how Sri Lanka's development trajectory unfolded after independence and how it has, really being impacted upon by various policy shifts that have taken place, and then, really look at the indicators and then, draw some conclusions as to where we are and where we have to move forward. Now, here I have outlined, the presentation. Now, economic and social policy shifts have been the most critical factors that influence the development trajectory with, very, very significant outcomes, both positive and negative. Now, in the case of Sri Lanka, after independence, we adopted, certain policies that were really meant to produce certain outcomes in terms of equity, in terms of equality of opportunity, in terms of sustainability, and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, the policy situation changed dramatically in the late 1970s, where we had neoliberal policies being adopted, and of course its impacts are very clear. So we have seen social structural change happening as a result, and consumption patterns changing dramatically and impacting on the whole issue of sustainability in a negative way. And I'll draw some conclusions thereafter. I'm not going to say anything on this. I think it is quite clear. We have committed ourselves to sustainable development goals at a particular point in time. Let's say in the 2017, we established the Sustainable Development Council and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, things have not really happened according to our expectations. In fact, what has come out in Sri Lanka is the exact opposite of what sustainability and equity and things like that stand for. Now, I'll give you some I'll give you some data so that you can understand what really happens in the case of Sri Lanka. Now, when we adopted, neoliberal policies, what are called open economic policies, dramatic changes happen in the economy in terms of deindustrialization, and then also, of course, the impact on, let's say, employment and so on, and that led to out-migration in the case of Sri Lanka. You can see before liberalization in 1976, you had very few people leaving the country for employment overseas, but now you can see it's rapid increase. I don't want to expand on that. And then, also, of course, the trade deficit, trade gap started widening, and you can again see during this period, the trade gap has increased from minus 4 to minus 9, which is almost double during this period. In other words, the gap between imports and exports started sort of widening, leading to a kind of increasing deficit, and that really had a huge impact. And that really was one of the reasons why the government promoted out-migration of labor. And this is, again, one of the outcomes, consumption patterns. I told you how the transport sector transformed dramatically, giving way to, let's say, private transportation, pushing the public transportation aside. And then this is another one, employment structure has changed dramatically. You can see here informal employment predominates. And only about 27% of the working population had regular employment with any form of social protection, and so on and so forth. And this is the income distribution, a very significant income inequality, and you can see again during the same period. And then finally, I want to make a comment on this one. We have been guided by statistics on poverty alleviation and how poverty increases or decreases and so on. But the problem is much, much bigger, much, much deeper. And this is exactly what came out of this study that was done in 2023. And it was focused not just on poverty, not just on income inequality. It was focused on what we call multi-dimensional vulnerability. Vulnerability is the exact opposite of resilience. So resilience goes down and vulnerability increases. Now here, it's not just one factor. 6 very critical factors were taken into consideration, and 56% of the households were vulnerable in 2023. So these are the outcomes of the policy shift that I just mentioned. And here we are in a situation where we can see the policy is influenced by various factors, in particular in this case, private interests and the government policies supporting private interests as against public interests. So that has really, and now the point is here you have a framework, and that is very much in line with sustainable development, and we can be guided by this. If you really want data, you have disaggregated data going right down to the household level, of course at a national level, as I told you, 56%. So the point is, we have a choice here. If you really want equitable development, sustainable development, and also ecologically friendly, approaches to development, then you have a choice. So it's a question of whether we want to be guided by data coming from social science research, and this is all social science research that I presented earlier. We have a choice. Now the question is whether we can come to some kind of understanding across the board to adopt this particular approach to development planning. But the question, of course, is it is very urgent. Sri Lanka was devastated last week. What more message, what more you want to know about where we are? I think the choice is quite clear, and I hope that we would probably be guided by evidence, and also, of course, the situation in the country where people do not know where to go, what to do, because they are helpless. So this is for the first time the whole country was devastated. We certainly had disasters in the past, including the tsunami that was confined to the coastal areas, and we had our presentation on coastal erosion. Now the question is whether we want to take good ideas coming from academics, researchers, and concerned citizens seriously and accordingly, or whether we want to carry on regardless and face the obvious outcome that you can expect, because the point is that poverty is going to be really a massive problem in Sri Lanka in the next months and years, because this particular catastrophe in the country has displaced millions of people in all parts of the country. In particular, vulnerable areas where certain very irresponsible steps were taken to promote what we call development. So the point is that evidence is there, and I think what we are advocating as a community of researchers in the social sciences is that let's be guided by not only evidence but also by our values, because we have been living in a situation for several decades where the country has been, driven by instrumental values. But the point is that we were committed to substantive values, and we achieved a great deal in Sri Lanka. In fact, we had a very high level of social development in the country, even at a very low level of development. In other words, the policies speak for themselves. Thank you very much. I think I'm okay with that.
Technology. Thank you very much, Professor Hettige. All of us do realize and understand the problems and the difficulties faced by Sri Lanka today. As you said, you had tsunami at one time. Sri Lanka faces natural disasters, man-made disasters, political difficulties within, international debt crisis. India stands by Sri Lanka, sir. It is the duty of the social science researcher to come up with ideas with interdisciplinary research. So what is happening to the Sri Lankan economy and the poverty alleviation, it's not only the job of the economists, but also the policy makers and other departments of social sciences which can really contribute towards a better future for Sri Lanka, how to meet the challenges. The environmental challenges, like it is going to affect small island countries more than big countries. So both ecological and technological challenges are there for all countries and all. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have the scholar from Fiji with us. Next speaker would be our friend from Thailand, Dr. Suppose Arevat. Now the floor is yours, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, the changing global landscape, defined increasingly by uncertainty and disruption, demands new ways of thinking from the social sciences. We are no longer observing cyclical fluctuation, but structural transformation that reshape how society operate, adapt, and response. I aim to connect this global shift with regional realities. I identify the research gap that hinder our understanding, proposed methodological direction that can guide more resilient and equitable future. Across the world, we are witnessing an accumulation of system pressures that interact with in complex and often unpredictable ways. We and all forces highlighted do not occur in isolation. They compel one another, altering the foundation of labor markets, governance system, and citizen expectation. In this environment, traditional policy tools are increasingly insufficient, and evidence-based social science become indispensable for making sense of the world that is shifting faster than institutional structure can adapt. The Indo-Pacific confront multi-layer and unevenly distributed uncertainty and disruption. The Indo-Pacific itself is becoming a fiercely contested arena where major military and economic powers, including India, will intensify their strategic competition over the next decade as the world economic center of gravity is located within the Indo-Pacific region. These factors reshape not only regional stability, but also global economic and political trajectories. The Indo-Pacific has become a laboratory of emerging risk, a space where the next generation of social science research must be grounded if it is to remain relevant. Social science is an art that transforms disruption, uncertainty, into pathway of action, guiding us towards a more equitable and resilient society. It offers analytical lenses that help us interpret the economic, demographic, and cultural volatility of society by integrating these three dimensions: demographic, cultural, economic. Social science provides not only explanation, but also framework of anticipating change and designing policy responses grounded in real social conditions. Systematic understanding of the shifts in demographic, economic, and cultural shifts is essential because they shape our society's perceived risk, negotiated conflicts, and respond to crisis. Without recognizing the depth of this transition, governance framework will remain reactive rather than anticipatory. The impact of this shift unfolds across multiple layers of society. These are not separate domains. They overlap and reinforce one another. A multi-dimensional understanding of impact enables policymakers to move beyond sector-specific intervention towards integrated strategies that reflect the complexity of real-world challenge. However, several research gaps remain. For example, emotional, psychological, and trust-related dimension of disruption remain under-measured, yet they heavily influence public behavior. Many studies continue to focus on national setting, overlooking the regional interconnectedness that defined the Indo-Pacific. This gap highlight the urgent need for methodological innovation, interdisciplinary requirement. Now, then frontier social research is therefore needed using the flexible, mixed method and trauma-informed approaches that are context-aware and capable of operating in volatile environments. The aim is not merely to document disruption, but to generate knowledge that can inform governance, resilience, planning, and social transformation. Mixed method research methodology, mixed method approach combined with trauma-informed principle offer powerful ways to study complex and sensitive contexts. Both of them promote safety, agency, and emotional awareness throughout the research process. While these approaches require more resources, time, methodological sophistication, they allow scholars to collect deeper, safer, and more meaningful data in settings where standard research design often falls short. Mixed method and trauma-informed approach must incorporate in a multi-capital framework, as it is one of the key lenses that help expand our understanding of societal resilience by recognizing that community rely on more than just one single capital. Viewing society to this interconnected set capital provides a more holistic basis for designing policy that's strengthening resilience, not only through nurturing of multiple, mutually reinforcing form of value. In many ways, navigating uncertainty and disruption becomes a form of craft, and art grounded in judgment, creativity, discipline, improvisation. It's required institution and individual to move beyond static models and to embrace curiosity, adaptability, and reflective learning. This perspective does not romanticize instability. Rather, it acknowledges that resilience emerges when society cultivates the capacity to work with uncertainty rather than resist it. Treating uncertainty as a space for discovery opens new pathways for innovation and governance that are more inclusive and future-oriented. Ultimately, the question is not whether uncertainty will persist. It will. The defining change is whether we can transform disruption into insight and insight into collective action. Social science provides the tool to interpret change, but it is our shared commitment to learning, adaptation, and collaboration that will determine how society emerge from this period of global transformation. The future is not predetermined, but it is shaped by choices we make in moments of instability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Aryabhat. Your presentation was comprehensive, very insightful, intellectually challenging, and the kind of even research methodology issues that you brought up should be a wake-up call for everyone. We often talk about interdisciplinary research, multidisciplinary research, but the way he presented it and even added certain dimensions like the psychological dimension, the emotional dimension is actually the key. Data don't speak. The intellectuals make the data speak. Facts are not value neutral the moment we use the facts to make an analysis. So that way your presentation is really thought-provoking, really thought-provoking. And what to say, when he brought about the large mega picture of uncertainty in the Indo-Pacific, the uncertainty is such that it is changing by days and weeks. And it is such a big challenge for the social science researchers. By the time you make a research and bring out an output, things have changed again. New challenges have come. It is so dynamic. So under such circumstances, when he is recommending that all the researchers should have to put their heads together to understand the dynamics and try to sustain the society, this is really, really fascinating. And in this topic, when we have included even technology, I'm really sorry that I announced that speaker from Fiji is not here, but the speaker is making use of technology to be with us through, I think, videos, online presentation. So now let me request our speaker from Fiji to make her presentation. Dr. Buriata. Dr. Buriata, you have 10 golden minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you, Chair. And Bula, everyone, namaste, and warm greetings from the South Pacific here in Fiji. Thank you for the opportunity to share some insights on this topic, bridging worlds, hybrid knowledge models, and the future of traditional ecological knowledge in the Pacific region. And before I further explore this topic, it is important that I establish some contextual understanding of the Pacific region for those who do not have that good grasp of the region yet. So where is the Pacific region? It's inside this blue circle. The Pacific region is home to 22 countries and territories spread across the world's largest ocean, that's the Pacific Ocean, with a population of about 2.6 million people. It is a region of immense cultural diversity, as you can see, shaped by Melanesian, Polynesian, and Micronesian worldviews. Pacific people hold deep relationships with the land, ocean, and community. These relationships are strengthened through navigation traditions, kinship systems, and ecological stewardship, and that guide how resources are cared for. Historically, the region has been shaped by colonial administrations, which influenced their governance, economies, and education systems, including the early formation of business and management education in the Pacific. And I intend to talk about business and management education because I'm situated in the School of Business and Management. So this is the paper that are based on that. As Pacific nations gained independence, they focus more on national building, regional cooperation, and more Pacific-led institutions that advance their political, economic, and cultural interests. What I can say, Pacific Island nations are keen to protect their cultural heritage, and that includes their traditional ecological knowledge. Or I use an acronym here, TEC, for that. TEC is basically a body of knowledge, practices, and beliefs that develop through long-term relationships between people and their environment. And as Beck's definition here, traditional ecological knowledge evolves through adaptive learning, and it is being passed achieving, seeing with the two eyes, where each system strengthens and enriches the other. So hybrid knowledge models, that's what I'm talking about here in this paper, provides a pathway for revitalizing traditional ecological knowledge, but also in the context of business schools, it also provides an opportunity or expand their understanding on how they're going to incorporate sustainability into their curriculum and research program. How can they understand better sustainability, resilience, and even the nature of knowing itself? So very important for business schools, transformation. And as I wanted to talk about, business schools are actually post-colonial institutions, and why I'm saying that because they are rooted in Western traditions. What we have been taught in business schools is very much shaped by Western economic and managerial theories. So there has been a strong push now to challenge Western hegemony or dominance and address epistemic injustice that's taking place in management and business education. And this means in the Pacific, we are looking at decolonizing business education by incorporating knowledge, indigenous knowledge, cultural values, global South perspectives. So we propose hybrid models, knowledge models, will provide that answer to the problems that were identified, the declining of tech and achieving epistemic justice. It is more about bringing together hybrid knowledge as a way to institute in action. It's like two canoes that are traveling together side by side towards a shared destination. So that's how we can see how we could work together with different ways and forms of knowing. And even we talk about technology in this session, so we could also tap into what form of knowing do we leverage technologies, and what type of technologies are we talking about here. We presented a case study in the paper about a project that demonstrates how business schools can integrate or support traditional ecological knowledge and hybrid knowledge models. And this is the research project that we are talking about. It's designed to explore how Pacific indigenous women use traditional ecological knowledge to innovate, but also to build their resilience against the impacts of climate change in their communities. And the study was conducted in Fiji, Solomon Islands, and Kiribati, 3 countries that are villages or village communities. Our team in the project consists of indigenous Pacific scholars, although they are all trained in Western business traditions, but that makes them in more position themselves as the cultural mediators. They understand both worlds, the worlds of the Western and the worlds of the indigenous. This is the methodology that we used in that case, in that project, and we talked about methodology in the other presentations, so mixed methods, but we also have the indigenous elements as part of that, because we want to embrace your engaging with communities to work with. So we follow a pragmatic case study approach, but have some indigenous elements in there. As you can see, the way we engage with communities, we use Talanoa in Fiji, we use Top Stories, Solomon Islands, we use the Naroro in Kiribati. These are different forms of storytelling, but in cultural But again, in the village, we have a local meeting house. It's called the Maniata in PSSM. This is how it looks like. So I'm presenting some of the photos to really give you some idea of what we're doing in the community. So here we have in the classroom university students, and on the other side, the other photo looks at the kind of students that I taught in the village. These are the women from the village coming from their home and attending my class, my workshop on marketing.
Okay.
Sorry. So I think I already have run out of time, so I just want to conclude here with some of the recommendations. Institutional commitment is important. I think it's important to recognize that indigenous knowledge is important, so I would like to end here due to the time limit. Thank you.
Dr. Buriata, if I could give you 3 hours more to speak on this topic. Excellent presentation. Excellent presentation. In fact, you elevated this particular session to still higher level of the philosophy of knowledge, which is great. And I must appreciate and congratulate the people who framed this particular session. We began with a micro issue, a localized issue in Malaysia, moved on to a country issue, Sri Lanka, moved on to a mega research methodology issues from Thailand, and from Fiji, it is still above that, knowledge system itself. It is a wonderful presentation. In fact, even the government of India is encouraging, inspiring, and funding this indigenous knowledge system to be adopted in research in all sectors, including medical science, military science, social sciences, economics. This itself can be a theme of a full-fledged today's seminar, indigenous knowledge system in India, in Fiji, and elsewhere. I'll just draw your attention to one fact because of lack of time. You know, the Western scientists debated for a long time whether the sun is moving around the earth or the earth is moving around the sun for quite a few centuries. Thousands and thousands of years before that, in the indigenous Indian knowledge system, in what is called Upanishad, it was written in Sanskrit, Sthita Surya Gata Prithvi. Surya is sun, Sthit is static, earth is moving. So tremendous amount of indigenous knowledge exists practically in every society, in every continent. And the way people have been trained in the Western form of research, which is not a bad thing, but forgetting yours and adopting somebody else's is not enough. And this is what he's saying. She is making an argument that this indigenous knowledge system, it should not be integrated. It should not be amalgamated. There is a particular knowledge system there. There is another one here. Both can coexist. Both can complement each other, but not to be integrated and assimilated. That's a great conclusion that we have said. I'm sure when your paper will be published, all of us will get a chance to read the details, and maybe on some other occasion you will get an opportunity to speak more for 3 hours. Thank you very much. Now, we have very limited time. It always happens in seminars, conferences like this, but still, if anyone has any question directly pointing at any of the presenters, please do so. I request all of you not to make long comments, because otherwise we cannot end this session. There's another session is waiting. So if anyone has any question to any of the panelists, please do so. Raise your hands. Looks like all are fascinated by the presentations except one. Please.
Good afternoon. I have a question for Professor Siri Hettige. From a policy point of view, what lessons emerged from the economic crisis in Sri Lanka a few years ago, and how much did it reshape social sciences in Sri Lanka? How much of a seismic event was that, the economic crisis?
I think the background to the economic crisis is quite well known, but it has been documented. In fact, it is a culmination of a certain policy process that was, really set in motion after 1977, called the open economic policy, where you see the point is that the state took a back seat and allowed, various private, institutions to really guide the development process. Now, for instance, migration, became the most significant source of foreign exchange for Sri Lanka. In fact, these are people from rural areas who are engaged in agricultural activities, but then the point is that when they realized that, that they could not really make a living, by engaging in agriculture, they started moving out. When industries collapsed, actually, there was so much unemployment created as a result over a period of time. So the point is that the government found the shortcut by dispatching, nearly 1 million, workers. Sri Lanka is a very small country with only about 8 million labor force. And if you had sent, let's say 1 million people to the Middle East to start with, to really generate foreign exchange, to really, bridge the trade gap, then, it really creates a situation where, government had to depend on, borrowing money from various sources. And also some of the investment projects that came into the country also based on, loans. So the point is that when the economic collapsed, actually a lot of these projects also came to a kind of standstill. Like, for instance, the tourism was another one that was dependent on, and that also went really down. So the point is that economic crisis was a creation from within the country. So the point is it became very obvious that the policies that we adopted produced outcomes, whether positive or negative, and that you can learn from them, and then you can really figure out how to really respond to a situation. So the point is that sustainable development model actually is something that we have to embrace, because it will not only address the economic issue, but also a range of other issues that the people are confronted with. Now, for instance, you become more and more dependent, let's say, on foreign exchange, when you have to really, let's say, keep importing fuel and transport vehicles and food and everything. So the point is that the crisis was created from within through a particular policy package, and that is how within a year or so there was a major uprising. And that really brought the new government into power. So the point is, the demand is now for an alternative model of development, and that of course combines not only equity and equality of opportunity, but also sustainability and respond to various global issues that we are confronted with. Now, of course, we have learned it by being exposed to this massive calamity last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure all of you will agree with me that this was a grand success, this particular session. All of us learned a great deal from all the presentations. We know very well that there are ecological challenges, there are technological challenges. The primary challenge to all the researchers is how to stay awake after lunch. And I was looking at everyone. Our main presenters did not let you sleep or even doze. So that is the proof of the grand success. Please give very big hands to all the paper presenters. With this, I declare the session to close. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Dr. Chintamani, Mahapatra, and of course to our 4 presenters in this session 3. Okay, so May we call on Dr. Claire Ryu and again Professor Mahapatra on stage for a simple token of appreciation from ICSSR and AASSREC. Again, a round of applause for Dr. Chintamani Mahapatra, our session chair for session 3. Right. Again, thank you very much.